So tonight I wanted to do just a quick live stream about just one particular issue, and I think that you might find it quite startling. I've been sort of aware of these figures for a while, but when they're put into just a single day, the statistics, it's quite amazing. So these stats are from the Food and Agricultural Organization, and hopefully you can hear me okay. And so they're statistics that are just for today, and it'll be the same again tomorrow and the next day. And this is from a post on Facebook that I saw. There's an elephant in the room, and in that in that sort of comment, in that sort of section, along with the image that includes these statistics, it says that it does not include 20.3 million newly hatched male chicks, and it doesn't include the billions and billions of aquatic animals who are also killed today. And it doesn't include the many that will die in laboratories while being used, and also the animals being used as entertainment. It doesn't include the hunting statistics and so forth. So, this is something we need to keep in mind. So if we're not vegan. So the statistics today, I'll just read them out. This is the individuals slaughtered globally in a single day. So I don't know if there's anybody here yet. So hopefully the sound is okay. So let's see. So cows, it's 827,449. Buffalo, 71,755. Sheep, 1,510,742. Goats, 1,259,893. Pigs, 4,049,773. Chickens, 180,400,833. That's a startling amount, 180 million. This is just today. Ducks, 8,372,888. Geese and guinea fowl, 1,800,214. Turkeys, 1,844,597. Other birds, 151,573. Horses, 13,108. And I imagine a lot of people don't think of horses, but that's an amazing amount. I know that in Australia, a lot of ex-race horses are slaughtered, and then the horse meat is shipped to countries around the world, as well as I'm sure horse meat is eaten in Australia, and I think there's 25,000 plus horses ex-racing horses every year are killed for that purpose. Then asses, 7,040. Mules, 1,308. Camels, 6,699. Rabbits, 2,687,079. Other rodents, 192,986. Other camelids, 2,588. Individuals classed as game, 1,797. Others not defined, 256. So the total for today, all the sentient animals who were killed for completely trivial reasons of mostly palate pleasure, because we don't need animal products at all to survive. We can easily meet all our nutrition requirements from plants and other non-animal sources. So all these animals, the 203,210,584 sentient animals who were tortured and killed today, were tortured for completely trivial reasons of mostly palate pleasure, which makes it morally unjustifiable. And I'm going to share with you, and just remember that a lot of these animals are just like the dogs and the cats whom we live with, whom we think are family members, and there's no difference between those, the dogs and cats whom we live with, who are also property and considered property by society, and these non-human animals who are tortured and killed by the hundreds of millions each day. So, just imagine that every second there's thousands of animals being killed. I mean, we don't even know how many aquatic animals are killed every day, really. It's sort of unfathomable. And something to remember is that the animals who are the aquatic sentient animals who are killed, a lot of them are considered quote unquote bycatch, and there's I think it's for every 1 pound of aquatic animals that is used for food, there's 2 pounds of that is thrown overboard. So that means there's millions of tons of animals each year are just thrown overboard, and there's sharks and whales and dolphins and turtles and all kinds of other animals that have no that weren't the target aquatic animal. And just around here, I live in Tasmania, and they call it aquaculture. I just call it intensive industrialized farming of sentient fish. There was regularly they have incidents where, like recently, there was a storm, and I think it was like tens of thousands of fish were released from their cage in this storm. And of course, most of them, pretty much all of them, will die because they don't compete with wild salmon very well, and so they'll just starve to death and die or be eaten by other animals. It was like 500,000 or something, or maybe it was more, but it was a huge amount of salmon escaped. And there was also an incident in, I think it was Macquarie Harbour on the east coast of Tasmania, where 1.5 million salmon just died in the nets because of, I don't know whether it was some change in temperature. I mean, this is sort of like, and that's an appalling sort of a thing. I mean, whether they're caught, by a hook and line in the ocean, or whether they're in sort of a quote unquote factory farming setting in nets, it's just all awful because they're sentient, and it's just, if these so-called quote unquote humane animal welfare standards were applied to humans, it would be considered torture. So anyway, I wanted to share something by Linda Clark from There's an Elephant in the Room, and I invite you to please check out There's an Elephant in the Room, which is a vegan website, which Linda is quite prolific, and she writes wonderful blog posts quite frequently. Excuse me. And so Linda and I every so often will share one of her blog posts, and I usually discuss it. And I'll be doing more of that on this channel now that I have my desktop set up to use on YouTube. It's a bit easier for me than when I was just using my phone. And so I'll be doing more vegan live streams from this location, as well as from Real Progressives on Facebook. And if you want to check that out, I've already done a number of live streams on varied issues, but there's quite a few on veganism, and you can find that if you're on Facebook at Real, R-E-A-L, Progressive, singular, on Facebook. That's Real Progressive on Facebook. Okay, so Linda today, she posted this, just a short little thing about why she's vegan, which was inspired by someone who was at a restaurant with her and said, "Don't worry, there's something for you to eat at this restaurant." And I think Linda was thinking, well, veganism is a lot more than a diet. It's an ethical position, and there's a lot more to be concerned about than what I'm going to eat at a restaurant. Something to that effect, anyway. So this is what Linda said in this post on Facebook. She said, "I am vegan. The word vegan defines and encapsulates everything that I am. The word vegan explains every value that I hold and describes the standard of conduct that I expect of myself in all of my dealings with other individuals of every species. For the rest of my life, I will continue to explain how being vegan is simply a lived expression of values that we all claim to hold. For the rest of my life, each individual victim of the unaccounted annual trillions that our species uses and slaughters without conscience will have a defender in me, and I shall demand justice for them and with every word I write. This to me is veganism. Please join me." So that's something from Linda, and she and I invite you to check out her website, and I will leave a link to Linda's website. I hope you do subscribe to it, because really the most important thing we can do when becoming vegan is to internalize the ethical position, because if you have a strong ethical position, and that's what veganism is, you'll never really feel that there'll never be a situation where you think, "Oh, this is too inconvenient, I'm going to have a little bit of cheese," or something like that. You'll never really ever have that issue. You often hear people saying, I went vegan," and really what they mean is I'm adopting a plant-based diet for health reasons. Well, that's not veganism. And some people say, "Well, I'm concerned about the environment and climate change, so I went vegan," even though that's a very good impulse to go vegan, for the environment. And I'm going to share some information with you on why veganism is so important in relation to that too, which is also affecting non-human animals, that we're destroying the planet through animal agriculture. So that affects them as well. But when we say I'm going vegan for environmental reasons, that's not quite right, because if we're, because vegan is an ethical position, the reason it was coined in the first place, that the name veganism, is because it was for non-human animals. It was an ethical position which was to reject using animals for food. That's dairy, eggs, flesh, honey, etc. Meat, clothing, that's fur, wool, silk, leather, entertainment, and other reasons. So it sort of, there's all the forms of animal exploitation that exist today. It's a rejection of using animals as property. There's a little cat here who's trying to get my attention. Anyway, so I'm going to share with you some information about the incredible environmental destruction that accompanies animal agriculture, that is in direct relation to animal agriculture. And there was an article in The Guardian by David Carrington on May 31st, and it was, I think the title was "Avoiding Meat and Dairy Products is the Single Biggest Way to Address Climate Change." Anyway, I'll leave a link to that. And you can watch Cowspiracy, The Sustainability Secret, if you want to find out the staggering devastation that animal agriculture inflicts on the planet. But I'll just read some information from this, it's really quite startling. So I'll just read some paragraphs from this essay by David Carrington. Avoiding meat and dairy products is the single biggest way to reduce your environmental impact on the planet, according to the scientists behind the most comprehensive analysis to date of the damage farming does to the planet. Just make sure that I have this up. The new research showed that without meat and dairy consumption, global farmland use could be reduced by more than 75%, an area equivalent to the US, China, European Union, and Australia combined, and still feed the world. Loss of wild areas to agriculture is the leading cause of the current mass extinction of wildlife. I think he's referring to the sixth mass extinction, which is actually happening right now, and we're on the front lines. So our animal product consumption is eventually going to cause our own extinction, really, if it's contributing greatly. Anyway, he goes on to say, the new analysis shows that while meat and dairy provide just 18% of the calories and 37% of protein, it uses the vast majority, 83%, of farmland and produces 60% of agriculture's greenhouse gas emissions. Other recent research shows 86% of all land mammals are now, quote unquote, livestock for humans. The scientists also found that even the very lowest impact meat and dairy products still cause much more environmental harm than the least sustainable vegetable and cereal growing. The study published in the journal Science created a huge data set based on almost 40,000 farms in 119 countries and covering 40 food products that represent 90% of all that is eaten. It assessed the full impact of these foods from farm to fork on land use, climate change emissions, freshwater use, and water pollution, eutrophication, and air pollution, acidification. Quote, a vegan diet is probably the single biggest way to reduce your impact on planet Earth, not just greenhouse gases, but global acidification, eutrophication, land use, and water use, said Joseph Poore at the University of Oxford, UK, who led the research. Quote, it is far bigger than cutting down on your flights or buying an electric car, he said, as these only cut greenhouse gas emissions. Quote, agriculture is a sector that spans all the multitude of environmental problems, end quote, he said. Quote, really, it is animal products that are responsible for so much of this. Avoiding consumption of animal products delivers far better environmental benefits than trying to purchase sustainable meat and dairy, end quote. And I'll just break here for the second. Even though I'm sharing this article with you, I wouldn't talk about non-human animals this way. He's not seeing it in an ethical way in relation to why we should not be using animals, which is because they're not resources, they're sentient. He's viewing it more in terms of they're sort of irrelevant, and it's really about environmental destruction, which is all about us once again. And the reason we're in this position as a species is because we see things as it's all about us all the time. We've ignored the fact that there are, that this planet, the population, 99.99% of the planet's population are non-human animals, and we're just a very small percentage. But we've decided, in a human supremacist way, that these other 99.99% of sentient animals who are other animals are irrelevant. They're just here for us to either exploit or to look at for our entertainment. And this is what has brought us to this point now where we're on the brink of extinction. And also we're exploiting and killing our own kind. And I often say in my live streams that what one does to the most vulnerable group, which is non-human animals, the most vulnerable and invisible group, will do to human animals, and we do. And it's getting more and more like that, particularly as we become an overpopulated planet, which we've been for a few decades now. I mean, the planet can't really sustain an increasing population of people. It just can't. It's like shoving a bunch of people, more and more people, into a small house. You have a finite space, finite resources, and it's sort of unsustainable. And unfortunately, overpopulation just seems to go on unabated, and it's something that's being pushed to the back. But then, so is climate change. The Western nation governments it doesn't seem to be an issue, really. I mean, it's an insanity, really. We're committing an ecocide, and we're also we're also the creating a sixth mass extinction for which we will be on the front lines, and we just don't seem to care, really. It's just sort of like that's kind of put on the back burner. But anyway, so I'm going to read a little bit more of this, and so it said, and the analysis also revealed a huge variability between different ways of producing the same food. For example, beef cattle raised on deforested land results, in 12 times more greenhouse gases and uses 50 times more land than those grazing in rich natural pasture. The comparison of beef with plant proteins such as peas is stark, with even the lowest impact beef responsible for 6 times more greenhouse gases and 36 times more land. One surprise from the work was that the large impact of freshwater fish farming, which provides 2/3 of such fish in Asia and 96% in Europe, and was thought to be relatively environmentally friendly. Quote, "You get all these fish depositing excreta and unconsumed feed down to the bottom of the pond, where there is barely any oxygen, making it the perfect environment for methane production," end quote, a potent greenhouse gas, Paul said. The research also found grass-fed beef, thought to be relatively low impact, was still responsible for much higher impacts than plant-based food. Quote, "Converting grass into meat is like converting coal to energy. It comes with an immense cost in emissions," end quote, Paul said. The new research has received strong praise from other food experts. Professor Gidon Ishel at Bard College, US, said, quote, "I was awestruck. It really is important, sound, ambitious, revealing, and beautifully done," end quote. Anyway, so that's part of that essay. I didn't read all of it because parts of it he's sort of suggesting that we just need to cut back or find sustainable ways of, no, I don't mean Professor Paul, but the article kind of lends itself, rather than just going vegan straight out, that there might be some way that we might be able to reduce this impact. But then he himself just thought it was the best thing was to just go vegan. But as I said, when you're writing from other viewpoints that aren't about non-human animals, the ethical reason why we should be vegan, then you're going to make make exceptions, and you're going to make excuses, and when it becomes inconvenient, you might say, well, I'll just have a little bit of cheese today. What will that hurt? Or I'll have an egg here, or it just goes on like that. So that's why the most important reason to be vegan is because non-human animals are sentient beings, and they're not our property. They never were. And we just use them and exploit them because we can. And that's a terrible reason to, it's just terrible, because as I said, we don't need animal products at all to survive, nutrition-wise. And I invite you to check out nutritionfacts.org. which is an incredible science-based site which collects all this information about science journals, medical journals, all the latest journals that in relation to nutrition, and they collate all this information and they make little 2-minute videos which sort of discuss it and show you the science-backed evidence. And it's not about torturing animals to find that out either. It's just human studies. So Michael Greger, you can find, if I were you, I would subscribe to his YouTube channel, Nutrition Facts. That's NUTRITION FACTS, Nutrition Facts, and you'll get sort of probably one sort of short video twice a week maybe, and really it's great information. I also have a podcast site. It's called howtogovegan.org, which I think you might find very helpful. It focuses on the ethical reasons to be vegan, which is what veganism is, as I said. And it has nutrition. I've taken some nutrition information from Dr. Greger and put it into sections. And I think you might find that very interesting. And the only, and you'll find that with most vegans will say to you, the ones that have gone vegan for what I consider the right reasons, the ethical reasons, the only regret that vegans usually say they have is that they didn't go vegan sooner. I mean, every day I'm so grateful that that I became vegan. I wish that it had been much sooner. I didn't become vegan till I was 45. That was 13 years ago, and I think of all the animals that I have, that I participated in their killing, by just eating animal products. Participated in the taking of their children because I was eating dairy products. All these different products involve taking children and killing their children, and all sorts of dreadful, dreadful things, and mutilations, which is just everyday, the functions of everyday farming. Like I say, if you apply the so-called animal welfare standards, if you applied them to humans, it would be considered torture. It really would. I mean, they chop off genitals as a regular thing without anesthetic. They take children away from their mothers at a day old and then kill them or use them as slaves. I mean, it's just the normal functionings. And this is not talking just about industrialized, the quote unquote factory farming. Industrialized animal agriculture is, free range. They cram tens of thousands of, birds into a windowless shed, and they have like this small amount of room that they can run around in, and it's so stressful that they've had to chop their sensitive beaks off so that they don't peck one another to death. And you'll often find in these so-called quote unquote free range facilities that there's a lot of chickens that are dead on the ground and are being cannibalized, and all sorts of things. It's a horror house for those. It's a torture, unimaginable torture, and there's thick ammonia in the air, and it burns the lungs. I mean, it's a torture. This is so-called free range, and then there's the enriched cages, which is another kind of torture. And the free range farms, these so-called mum and pop farms, they still all these animals end up in the same slaughterhouses, and they also have their young taken from them. I mean, the dairy industry regularly takes male calves away from their mothers because they're of no use to the dairy industry. They just aren't, and they're taken away and they're killed. And, so this is all this dreadful torture and killing is for completely trivial reasons, and we can be completely healthy being vegan, just completely healthy. We don't need any of these. And these products are so toxic. They really are. If you subscribe to that nutritionfacts.org, which is not a vegan site, it's a plant-based nutrition site, you'll see how unbelievably toxic animal products are, and how incredibly, that let your food be thy medicine, that saying. I mean, it is so true about a plant-based diet. And I've never felt healthier. I mean, you're eating sort of a light, you're eating sort of plant-based products which are life-giving, instead of eating violence and eating tortured, the flesh of tortured animals. And the secretions of tortured animals. I mean, what species drinks this, the secretions of another species regularly every day? What species does that except for humans? I mean, what are we doing drinking another something that's meant for another animal, that is meant for another baby, and it's also meant to grow that baby, to that calf, to 300 pounds or something in a certain amount of time. It's no wonder we're all dying from diabetes and heart disease and everything else. And just one more thing, this is just a little example of the sort of things that you might see on nutritionfacts.org. There's this thing called endotoxemia, and it's something that happens to us when we consume flesh from another, from pigs or cows or whatever. It creates an inflammation instantly, because no matter how much you cook it, even if you boiled it for hours, it doesn't knock off all the pathogens. So you ingest these products. This is just one awful thing that happens. There's a bunch of things I could talk about, but this is one thing which I think is quite frightening, really, because it's unavoidable. All this, it's just awful. But anyway, when you ingest this, it immediately causes this inflammation in your system. And so you're basically in a constant state of inflammation when you're ingesting, animal products, because of these pathogens. And so you're opening, and not only you're making your system more acidic, and so you're more open to diseases and cancer and whatnot. And that's just one example, endotoxemia. But there's so many different things. It's like quite frightening once you sort of have a look and see, excuse me, see all the different things that can happen to you after eating various animal products, including eggs. One should think there should be a warning label, basically, on animal products. Seriously, like there is with cigarettes. That's what I think. Not only is it subsidized by the governments, the animal agriculture industry is very powerful in various countries, but it's subsidized heavily, so that people aren't paying as much, but people are still paying a lot, but they'd pay a lot more if it wasn't subsidized. And really, at some point, I think it's going to get to the point where the water resources that animal agriculture uses, which are significant, a huge amount of water resources are used by animal agriculture. It's posing lots of problems in the Murray-Darling Basin here in Australia. It's a huge problem in California, where there's been a drought. The animal agriculture consumes huge amounts of water. As you can imagine, cows drink a lot of water, and it takes like 1,000 gallons of water to make 1 gallon of milk. 1,000 gallons of water to make 1 gallon of milk. And just to remind you of this amazing, I just think this is an amazing statistic, which, sorry, I have another little cat here is trying to get my attention. I mean, this one thing that I read out The new research shows that without meat and dairy consumption, global farmland use could be reduced by more than 75%, an area equivalent to the US, China, European Union, and Australia combined, and still feed the world. I mean, isn't that amazing? 75%, an area that is massive, and you could still feed the world and still have that area left. And here's another statistic that I like to share with people, which I find startling. 1 acre every minute of Amazon rainforest is cleared for animal agriculture. 1 acre every minute of Amazon rainforest. So that's just one of so many things that is wrong with animal agriculture. It's destroying the environment. The one statistic said that 51% of greenhouse gases is from animal agriculture. That was the World Watch Institute a few years ago. And we can quibble about the percentage, but I mean, this very, very large report, which was 40,000 farms or whatever in 119 countries, whatever that was, it was a massive report, is clearly showing that we have to end that practice. And I would say we have to end that practice because killing 1 trillion plus land, and that's a conservative estimate, at land and aquatic animals every year, all those animals that I mentioned every single day, but every year, 1 trillion plus, it's just got to stop. It's just a violence, an unimaginable violence. And every second in slaughterhouses all over the world, there are animals screaming for their lives, sentient animals, just like the dogs and the cats whom you live with and whom you love. They're just like that. They all have individual likes and dislikes. They have individual personalities. All of that, they relate to their young and to the world, and they're being murdered for completely trivial reasons, just so that we can chow down on their flesh and drink their secretions and whatever else. And it's just sort of like we need to move beyond this kind of we do it because we can. It's a human supremacist thing, and these sorts of attitudes, as I say, spread to other areas of our life. And until we start embracing nonviolence and justice and applying that to other animals, because justice is not exclusive, until we start doing that, we're never, ever going to see peace on this planet. Never, ever. Until we wake up to what we're doing to all these sentient animals who are 99.99% of the planet, we're never, ever going to see peace. Excuse me. And it may be too late, to save ourselves from extinction, and we're going to take every other animal with us, or most species with us. And it may be too late for that. I was looking at this report recently, and it was just kind of really quite frightening. And I'll probably share that sometime soon. Something that I read on The Guardian, they went through, I think it was Dar Jamal. He went through a whole lot of things that are happening right now, and it's not looking good for us. But anyway, we have to keep on. Otherwise, we may as well just roll over and die. We have to keep on and try and make life better for everyone, and that includes non-human animals, to make this planet a just and non-violent one. And that includes rejecting imperialism and war. That's a very important thing that we all need to do. And that's what I talk about here on this on Faint Signals from Vega. I talk about it regularly because we have to care about human animals and non-human animals, and we have to care about injustice anywhere, because it's going to come back to all of us anyway, even in just a selfish sense. So anyhow, that's really all I wanted to say. So thank you very much for watching, and if you have any questions at all about veganism, please feel free to leave it in the comment section, and I'll see if I can do a live stream about that. Sincere and thoughtful questions are appreciated. Any sort of questions that are sort of silly or just trying to be contentious, I'll just delete them. I don't have much patience anymore. Life is too short for people who want to troll and invent stories and ignore the massive amount of evidence of why we should be vegan. And of course, the main reason, because we don't need to participate in this violence, and we don't need to get others to participate in this violence for us, which is what we do. So I don't have much time for people who want to try and obfuscate or stop or shut down the conversation, because life is too short, and we're really, really getting very close to the brink of extinction, and there are lives at stake. As you see, as I mentioned, there's 200 million plus lives every single day are being taken, and it's all for ridiculous, trivial reasons. So anyway, that's all I want to say for today. And I'm as I said, I'm going to try and do more now that I've got this my desktop set up for my YouTube channel. And for those who are watching this elsewhere, it's at Vegan Trove at that's the username is Vegan Trove, VEGANTROVE. And if you're on this site, please click the little bell, the notifications bell, so that you get all the updates when I go live or when I upload a video. And that's sort of important to do, clicking the little bell. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, and please go vegan. Check out howtogovegan.org, the podcast, and you can listen to it when you're on your treadmill, or if you're out walking, or sitting in a dentist waiting room, wherever you can listen to it. And I hope that it helps you go vegan. And if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to leave questions in the comments section. I'm always happy to answer them. And I was very happy. So just recently, someone said that they were thinking about, they were going to go vegan, and it makes me so happy, because I think of the thousands and thousands of animals, tens of thousands of animals that they will prevent the torture and killing of in their life by going vegan. They won't be bred into existence for that person. So that's really, really wonderful. So anyway, thanks so much again. Till next time. Bye for now.